Unlike in our past projects, today there will be no maps, no unit signs, and no arrows. Today we have a unique opportunity to dive deep into a first-hand account of modern warfare, in particular the Ukrainian one. Without further ado, I introduce Roman, a soldier who has worn many hats, from sniper and anti-tank weapon operator to stormtrooper, fighting in some of the most intense battles since 2015, including Kyiv and Bakhmut. Roman, you can go ahead. Could you start by telling us a bit about yourself, your journey, the units and roles you served in?
Hello, everybody, and first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this interview. I'm really appreciate have opportunity to talk a little bit with you, and because I was like a fan of your channel, I watch your videos, and it's so awesome to be here. And finally, we find time because right now I'm in hospital after multiple contusion. Yeah, but seems like I can talk with you like normally, I hope. My story is pretty short. I'm Roman. I'm 32. Was born in Kyiv and in Ukraine, and I was start my resistance against Russia since Revolution of Dignity from 2013. Then in 2015, I was in I was studying architectural. I was student, 22 years old, and I just joined voluntarily the Azov battalion. And then when hot phase of the anti-terroristic operation is just stopped, so I just get back to the civilian life. I was studying, learning, and working as a psychology, as profiler, and but most of the time I doing real estate in Kyiv till full-scale invasion. So like a few weeks before full-scale invasion, I had feeling that everything's gonna be serious. So I just we do some shopping and buy my military gear. And 24th of February, I just join the Kyiv base. I just join our unit SSO Azov with other Azov veterans and volunteer civilian who join our unit.
What initially motivated you to join the military? You mentioned the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. Obviously, it was a turning point in modern Ukrainian history. But to be more specific, what motivated you to join in the midst of war in Donbass that spanned since 2014 until the full-scale invasion 10 years later?
This is something about inner feeling. I felt something wrong because everything in my life was okay. I was lived in Kyiv. There was no war there. I have a good job. I had a good job. I was studying architecture, have some party, a lot of fun, but this is about inner feeling when you feel that this is not important while Ukrainians die on the front line and while Russians start really aggression and together with separatist soldiers they start like taking out our territory. So this is about this is about carrying your country and your people. So I just drop all what I have and just go into the front line.
You mentioned that you originally was a part of Azov Regiment. Just to clear up some confusion, Azov Regiment was a volunteer unit during war in Donbass, and it was integrated and expanded to 12th Special Operations Brigade of National Guard. In the very beginning of full-scale invasion, members of it defended Mariupol, about which we have a separate video. At the same time, Azov veterans outside of Mariupol, in cities like Kyiv and Kharkiv, formed their own units referred to as SSO Azov or Special Operations Unit Azov, and these units later will be merged into the 3rd Assault Brigade.
Yes, of course, because there were many veterans of Azov who was in different cities while full-scale invasion starts. And same as me, I tried to go to Mariupol, but it was impossible because like fight near Kyiv starts. So like huge part of Azov veteran start fighting in different cities.
It makes sense. Here I will probably add another remark that eventually there are two Azov brigades, the 12th of the National Guard and the 3rd Assault, in which Roman served. These are two independent units, and I hope this removes naming ambiguity. Nevertheless, units still have a lot of ties in terms of the people involved. So, why did you choose Azov?
I have not a lot of choice, so it was only I have opportunity to join the regular army or Aidar. It was also volunteer battalion and Azov. That's all. But it was pretty easy for me because I always want to fight with the volunteer soldiers who wasn't pushed, who wasn't mobilized or stuff like that. And because the spirit of volunteer soldiers is the strongest, and I was raised on such movies when our army, like the winner in army, they're not who just in regular army, but those who resist and those who voluntarily join to battle. And between Aidar and Azov, probably I've seen like more videos of battle and just make a choice. I wasn't know anybody from like Azov or Aidar. I just make a choice and that's all.
So, moving on, what are you doing now?
Right now, just a bit more than a year, I try to recover after being in assault operation. Like I have multiple contusion, like traumatic brain injuries, and when your brain shaken, and you can't proceed fighting. You can't continue like being a civilian. So I'm in hospitals like 14 months in a row.
That's quite a time. And before moving to the next questions, I want to give Roman an opportunity to talk about his current campaign. He's gathering donations for pickup trucks and medevac vehicles for a number of units that are currently on the front line. So from here, Roman will tell you more about this initiative.
Yeah. Actually, right now, I try to help myself because I wasn't talk to people like almost a year. I was just close myself up. Before in the battlefield, I do a lot of interview and fighting, but then I couldn't do nothing. And right now I understand that I can't just continue just laying on the hospital and do nothing. And ask my friend Rick the Ukrainian. He has the channel on the YouTube, and he used to fundraise. And I said, let's do something. And I asked a few guys from the battlefield, and they need cars. So we organized this fundraising together with 69 Sniffing Brigade and Rick the Ukrainian and Olenivka community. Olenivka community is the community who helped the family of the POW of the war, especially Azov families. So we organized this fundraising to 4 units, and for those people who want to join, please please join this campaign, and also. I believe War Archive link down below all the information, and you could see the like all the details. It's really important because like from my opinion, you can't just do nothing. This is the time when we always must act. Even if you're not on the battlefield, you also must do some activity to help Ukraine in this fight.
Yeah, so if you wish to donate, as Roman said, I will leave a link in the description of this video. And I think it would be the best winter's holidays present for our guest. Prior to the full-scale invasion, you took part in the war in Donbass. Do you believe this particular conflict played a crucial role in preparing you for the full-scale invasion fighting, or no?
Yes and no, because the war is totally different compared to 2015. Of course, I have some like skills, and at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I had opportunity to share my experience with the like fresh unit, with the new volunteer who just yesterday was civilian, and I have opportunity to be in the commander and to share with them my experience. But still, this full-scale invasion, this is totally something absolutely new, even for like veterans of anti-terroristic operation.
I'm not going to ask about all the differences because these are pretty obvious. The scale of the battles, number of troops, and the average intensity of the combat differ immensely. But I wanted to ask what was the first difference you noticed when the full scale invasion began? Was there a moment when you just thought, okay, all my previous experience is valuable, but it simply does not apply in this particular situation?
Like airplanes and enemies aviation. Like what the hell is going on? Like you fight against Russian, but Russian also had aviation on their side, like helicopters and Su-34 or stuff like that, and you just think what the hell, and you literally can't do nothing against that. So it was maybe the biggest difference that I felt, especially at the beginning.
Can you describe your first engagement after the full scale invasion began? Where it was, what happened, and in general, how did it unfold?
Yeah, we our task was just defend the Irpin River near Moshun. It's little village near the Irpin, near Horenka, Bucha. I believe the viewers of his channel can like know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It's pretty close. Yeah, it's pretty close, and it was absolutely. Also, it was pretty different because it was like part of village and part of the forest, Kiev forest, full of trees, and it was also something chaotic battle. I don't know how we survived there, because our task was just don't let enemies to force the river. So they use so many artillery and all the forest, like, and this machine was on fire. Not bad. Enemies like expected that we should step back, because no one like could survive in such hell. But we stand on the position, dig deep, and find some dugouts, find some holes, or and hiding, and we just shoot them back across the river. And to be honest, it was. I still don't understand how we hold them back, and how we like hold this first fight against Russian. Especially there was special operations there, like Spetsnaz and VDV, and like elite group of Russian enemies was there against us.
Yeah, I don't want to extra time promote my video, but I believe we covered this exact episode in the second part of the Battle for Kiev series. It's also likely you fought against Russian 155th Marine Brigade. From Ukrainian side, I think you fought along the 72nd Mechanized Brigade. This indeed was one of the key areas and turning point in Battle for Kiev. I also want to make a small time jump now and ask you about the day when you encountered Russian BMP and destroyed it with NLAW. It was obviously a little bit later, after the Battle for Kiev.
So it was in Zaporizhia direction, and we hold like we hold a little village, Novosilki, and it was we rotated like a regular army, and it was I just smiling because it was like 12 of us. It was June. No, June. It was May 2022, and we hold the position like where should stand at least 100 soldiers, but it was only 12 of us, and enemies could be anywhere, and we always expect their attacks. And fortunately, we have a strong artillery support. But while we infantry was in the village, and it was it was between two huge hills. On one hills it was our artillery, on the other it was enemies, and so we received all the artillery shelling on our heads. And one day my fellows asked me, Rowan, please get rid of few infantry who on the opposite tree lines. There was like 500 or 600 meters from us. And I just looked at my scope, and I just understand that there's no infantry, but the BMP just start driving on us like 50 or 60 kilometers per hour through the field with infantry on top of it. And I never see such like crazy attack before. It's really like somebody is careless just driving to our position. And I just maybe think maybe they didn't know that we are here, we are in this position, so because they drive so bravely. So instead of shooting this BMP, I started working from sniper rifle, and then change position. It was actually like a 2 days battle. So firstly, I shoot with sniper and just get rid of a few invaders, and then with this NLAW, actually we have no anti-tank weapon, but we have a friend from the ZSU soldier who was like nearby, and we came to the yard, and I see the NLAW and ask them, guys, somebody could shoot from NLAW. They said no. And I said, I'm anti-tank soldier. Can I take it, please? And they say, okay, sure.
But you were not.
Like, I just had some 15 minutes instruction.
Oh well, that's totally enough, I guess.
Yes, but I understand that we should have something, because we only had the RPG on our position, one machine gun and AK, and that's all. So we can't hold any like armored vehicle attack. Maybe we could be lucky with
you have no
RPG.
choice other than learn. And
yes. So fortunately, they were so kind to just give me as a present this NLAW, and the next day, it was really lucky, because next day there was attack, and this BMP approached to our yard and start shooting us with huge caliber machine gun, and all the guys just lay down, and they just said break. It's my call sign. I was a break dancer. So they said, break, you have only one chance just to get rid of this, because it's gonna be our end. And actually it wasn't on video, but I just run out through the gate, aim to this BMP. It's standing like 100 meters in front of me, and shoot at us. And I just press the button, but nothing happened. And then I look at this NLAW, and I just realized that I forget to put on like the battery. It was like one of the stupidest moment of my life, because I realized I'm dead. But I was pretty lucky that this machine gunner was maybe blind, or he missed me, and so I run back, connect the battery to NLAW, and from the second try, I just shoot, and fortunately it was successful aiming. Знищив його з NLAW. Він задимівся, відступив від позиції і залишився тут покинутий в полі. Круто. Продовжуємо роботу.
Now I want to come back to Battle for Cave. I still have a few quick questions. And the first one is how close Russian forces were to capturing the capital. Not in terms of the distance, but rather in terms of the probability.
Yeah, actually it was so close, so it could happen like any day. So we have pretty tiny defense line, and in case that in any place this defense line will be broken by Russians, they will approach Kyiv in a few hours. So it was ridiculously close to that, and yet I can't explain how we hold them back.
Since you fought in the area of Mashun, I also wanted to ask if you and your fellow soldiers utilized any World War II fortifications there.
Yeah, it was even awesome because we really use our DOT. I don't know how to say in English.
Pillbox, I believe.
Yeah, but yes, steel and concrete box. Yeah, we used ancient fortifications, and there was even like some kind of little leftovers of trenches near these fortifications. So we just should dig deeper inside them and stand on position where our ancestors fighting before us, I believe. So it was something like, it was surreal, you know. It was maybe it was feeling that we creating Razor some movie than it was happened for real.
The next question might be more complicated, but I'm just really curious what aspects of the Russian armed forces you think are consistently underestimated and overestimated in Ukrainian and Western media.
I believe all of us underestimated Russians when first video with the prisoners of war appeared, and our media called them chmobiki, like something like, you know, they look so ugly and pathetic, and some of their uniform was way bigger than the soldier and stuff like that, and people used to laugh about it, or just laugh about their weapon sometimes. But the problem is it's still shooting, and it's still quantity, and the like unlimited quantity of the infantry and armor vehicle, despite they maybe looks not so stylish, not so good, but this it creates such image of Russian soldiers that they can't fight. From some part, I understand this is psychological move that try to raise the mood of the civilian who must have hope, right? But yet it's not so good, because from the other side, why the hell so many Ukrainian soldiers die in such battle if we fight against such weak enemy? It's not fair. From the other side, I believe the whole world mistakes thinking about Russia as the one of the strongest country in the world. Actually, they pretty weak when you fight them back. But when you start to appeal to their feelings, when you start to maybe propose their negotiations, they understand that you in weak position, so they could push forward. They have power, and this is even more politician, I believe, politician mistakes and diplomatic mistakes, because when Russia understand that they can't fight, for example, when they lost Syria recently, they just step back and they can't do nothing. But in Ukraine, somehow, I don't know why, like all the Western media call anything like escalation because they're afraid of it. But I believe this is we must act opposite. For example, if they threatening us with something, we should wisely push forward and just punch them, because this is the only language which Russian understand. And I don't know why, but it's like some kind of secret for supporters of Ukraine, unfortunately.
Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about Battle for Bakhmut. What were the typical operations of Ukrainian armed forces in this area?
I just only have a question. You're talking about, because in Bakhmut we have two phases, at least our third assault brigade. We was on defensive, and then it was counteroffensive operation. So you're talking about when we just hold the defense against Wagner, right?
Yeah, let's start with the defensive phase first.
Most of the time we fought against Wagner, and they also was two part of Wagner. One of them was elite professional military whose life profession was being soldier, and being like perfectly equipped, and it wasn't even first war for them. Like maybe full scale it was first, but it wasn't first war operation for them. Yeah. And the second part of Wagner, it was the prisoners and just meat grinder like crowd who doing another part of their job. So they pretty successfully use these two combination, and despite the numerous losses, they still step by step take ruin of Bakhmut. But most of the time it was infantry wave attack, so they understand pretty quickly that it's pretty effective to use little group, from 2 to 10 people, and spread them. So our lack of artillery shelling will tied our hand, and we couldn't support our infantry with our artillery, and was the huge advantage in those battles.
There is also a very common opinion that the Wagner midwave assaults, or simply waves of disposable infantry, is a myth. Some people point out that they never seen videos of such assaults from the drones, for example. First of all, we have a video showcasing exactly that, but I believe that there is misunderstanding in how these assaults usually proceeded. Wagner more often relied on multiple small infantry groups that tried to outflank defensive positions or at least infiltrate close enough. After that, troops accumulate in the gaps in the defenses and push further. You will not see how hundreds of Russians simply march through the fields in one line, but it's rather about dozens of small infantry groups constantly attacking from all sides with just abysmal casualties. If we zoom out, it will indeed look like a wave of infantry, but on the drone footage, these waves are not that evident. Am I explaining it right?
Yeah, actually, probably those people should watch new video with the North Korean troops, and they actually going through the field in a crowd. Wagner's used to do as you already explained, but also sometimes they just run through the field, and I actually personally never saw these videos, but I was witness of such a wave when they just actually using some drugs. They was under such effect that even if you injured them, they felt no pain, and it was really scary. Was one of the reasons why we call them like zombie attack, because if you shoot them and for example you you shoot at him, but he continue running, and no scream, no emotion, nothing. You can only see some like really scary face, and I don't know how to explain it. They wasn't even like a human, and most of the time, yeah, they try to collect the personnel in some place, and little by little, with this group in attack our position till with the support of artillery till we was out of our ammunition, or there was like many injured or fallen soldiers, so we can't continue to hold the position, or it was just flattened, when there are a lot of artillery shelling on trenches, and the huge mass of the ground just like flies everywhere. So there's no trenches maybe in few hours, or if in few days, and you just must step back, because you can't defend your like nothing. You can't defend yourself on the flat ground.
I'm also curious what percentage of trenches were made by soldiers who fight, and what percentage was made by separate units or with some heavy equipment.
You mean on our side, on Ukrainian side?
Yeah, on Ukrainian side.
It was a big difference, because we should do all the trenches by ourselves. We should fight back, dig trenches, carry wounded, carry ammunition, and Wagner's, for example, they have like they have some personnel who dig trenches for them. We for some of them, the mission was just take the backpack full of ammo and run through the field to our position as far as he can, and then just die. And then another guy just run without nothing, take this backpack and carry it as far as he can to our position again. And step by step, they bring more like ammo. They bring more opportunity to the soldier. They maintain the storm infantry, and we was outnumbered, because there was like 8-1, sometimes 10-1, like in comparison, and we should do all by ourselves. It was the big difference, so we was pretty jealous to their opportunity, for example, not to fight or not to dig or not to carry something. It was big difference between us.
Interesting. So Wagner relied on very strict separation of labor, with some expendable troops assigned to dig, others to overload Ukrainian positions, and also some professionals to specifically advance in key areas. And it also was pretty effective.
Yeah, for sure. For example, we could fight against like on two direction against professional Wagners, and on third direction there were another group of Wagners. So when we fight on two directions, in maybe a few hours of fighting, the slaves dig from other side on our position, like between our position, like friendly position. They own trenches. They have no bulletproof vest. They have no helmet. They hasn't any AK. They have nothing. They have shovel. They have this electric saw, and they have some instrument to build fortifications.
I'm on the front line position near Bakhmut, getting ready for get rid of invaders with these guns, this big machine gun, and my baby, my sniper rifle.
Our counteroffensive operation starts according to schedule, I believe, but which wasn't so good. It's like the quantity of Western support during this time, because some brigade, for example 47 of Magura, they have a lot of Western like vehicle, and it was good, but we was probably a little bit jealous because when counteroffensive start, and I believe only 2 brigade had huge success, and it was 47 Brigade Magura and 3rd Assault Brigade, who like liberate the most part of Ukraine. But we have actually nothing. We have this armored vehicle M113, and that's all. And a few times I heard the HIMARS shelling. Yeah, actually, to be honest, a few times it was M777. For that, especially, I'm really grateful for Western supporter, because I literally wasn't sitting here if we haven't this support of this howitzer. Yes, it is so precise. I just want to say thank to all the people who help us with this amazing weapon, because while Wagner attack us day and night, and our drone just watch us and make correction with this howitzer, and sometimes our artillery is shelling almost on our trenches, because, for example, it was only 6 or 7 of our soldiers, other of us was injured or stuff like that, and it was like few days we almost out of ammo, and again 20, and then again 20, then again 20 of Wagner's wave after wave attack our exhausted forces. And this M777, it shoot like in 15 or 20 meters, like in front of us, to get rid of wave of Wagner's, but it never injured us. It is so precise weapon. I'm just really glad, and I just want to thank all the people who push the government to give it to us. Yeah. But you asked about our counteroffensive. So we have armored vehicle, like personal carrier M113, and almost that's all. Our most, I believe, power, we was mentioned before about volunteer soldiers, was an ambitious mission. You see, sometimes one of the mission was like, I still don't believe how it happened. It was 2 group of our soldier, like 10 and 10, so in total 20 person. We just drive on the maximum speed on the M113 to the enemy tree line, and just start assault. And according to reconnaissance, there should probably be like 30 to 40 enemies on this trenches. But while we finished the operation, there was we realized that was more than 100 of Russians there, and half of them we eliminate or injured, or a few of them even take as prisoners, and half of them just through the field run away like as far as they can. So sometimes we doing so aggressive, like crazy operation, that they can't just resist. It was, it was something really like in the movies, because we liberated our land, and we were so highly motivated, even despite we have no like special weapon. We didn't care. We just do our job till we can, and I believe we made like a huge impact, and we scare them a lot. They still afraid of 3rd Assault Brigade.
So our counteroffensive operation continues maybe 12 hours without rest.
So when your role was to be a stormtrooper, your task was usually to jump in M113, get to positions, and clear the trenches. Maybe it's a weird question, but what are you doing inside M113 before reaching the destination?
Most of the time, I was on top of M113. For some reason, sometimes we just haven't enough of these vehicles, and sometimes and also I had a claustrophobia, so I was like pretty scary to drive inside this metal box, and I was very afraid to be burned alive while we approached the enemy's position, because there was a lot of mines, like anti-tank mine on the field, and also artillery shoot at us like constantly. So I prefer to die while while breathing the fresh air than being burned alive inside. But sometimes it was forbidden. We have enough vehicle, and it was forbidden to drive on the roof, and it was hell. It was totally hell. I just waiting when the fight starts, because this is so scary. And the most scary moment was because I wasn't the first, and it wasn't the first and the last time when soldiers just burned out in armored vehicle. But for me, it was like the most scary death, and it was tough time. I don't know how do you know what to ask, but it was very difficult minutes of my life.
Yeah, I can pretty much see how it still brings you some discomfort thinking about it, because I mean, that's
Yeah.
great. You're not like you're not assigned to be a tank driver, for example, because well,
Yes, but again, most of the time we have not enough vehicle for operation. Some of them was also destroyed. Like many of them was destroyed. So like if we have enough, this is actually why for example in 47 brigade, so many injured, but only like few deadly casualties, because the Abrams or the Bradley, they very well protected, like they can save the life. But we have not enough of these vehicles, so we have no choice.
how the like weather affected your missions?
It's never comfortable to fight. It's never perfect weather. It's summer, it's hot as hell. Winter, so cold that you can knocked out and just like lost your consciousness. Spring and autumn is so moody. So, and the vehicle and the infantry just swim.
Bakhmut area. I'm laying down on the land which was under Russian occupation less than 1 hour ago. So we retake it back, and we take back approximately 1 kilometer for today. We're really happy about it.
And then, with the Battle of Bakhmut, there was a quite famous conflict between Prigozhin and the Russian Ministry of Defense around supplies of artillery and munitions. However, it looked like Russians still had enough ammo on Bakhmut axis after that, and this shortage was essentially fake. Is it correct?
Yeah, I just can prove your words. They never had lack of ammunition or soldiers or supply or anything. It was some kind of inner conflict, yeah, for sure. And maybe, from my opinion, I believe they just want more ammunition, and just because it's never enough. But they could afford. How long it was the assault of Bakhmut? Like more than a year, right? From the summer 2022 till
like
the
9
winter.
months, 8 months.
Yeah, like 9 months. So during this time, they could do it day and night, non-stop.
I saw videos of you participating in likely one of the most complex missions, which are medical evacuations. How have you managed to act so professionally and emotionally composed in such situations? Is it due to good training or simply experience?
Погнали, погнали. Я виходжу. 300 броню. Все, виходь.
Of course, in our brigade, in 3rd Assault Brigade, we spend a lot of time for practicing medicine, but also this is about some. Speaking personally of myself, when I see the critical situation, and especially when I see the people in panic, somehow I mobilize myself and I understand that many things depends on me, and it gives me some power to act, and sometimes even like unconsciously. Yes, sometimes the medical skills help me, and sometimes I just do some things like because I understand what, like from my action depends life or death of my combat fellow, or just the life of unknown soldiers, but Ukrainian soldiers. So this is in complexity, but of course you should train a lot, and then you'll feel like more confident in such situations.
At this point, you told about your experiences as a sniper, anti-armor infantryman, and stormtrooper as well. When exactly you had to switch these roles?
Yes. Before we moved to Bakhmut, with SSO Azov, all the Azov regiment created the 3rd Assault Brigade, and then I stopped being anti-tank soldier, and I stopped being like in assault regiment. But also I always fought with the AK and the sniper rifle, so I have like in the game 2 weapons. Yeah, it was because I had experience actually in you mentioned this battle, like when I shoot for the first time from in low, and that was also a fierce battle, and I just leave AK on another position because it wasn't so far, and I was with sniper rifle shooting the enemy on the BMP who approach us, but still BMP approached like 20 meters, and it starts close fighting in the bushes and trenches, and I had this bolt sniper rifle Zauer S100. It's a German sniper rifle, but it's bolt mechanism, so I was shooting in close fight like in First World War, just shoot, then reload, then again one shot. And after that I just swear to myself that I will never leave AK like anywhere, and I will always have AK with me, because in my experience it was very proven, because sometimes I was with snipers who only was with sniper rifle on assault mission, and we covered our infantry who just cleaned the trenches. But sometimes infantry move through the tree line, and Russian just hide deep inside the holes, and our infantry go forward, and the Russian climb out and attack us in the rear. So sometimes our group of 4 snipers was totally surrendered, and fortunately I have an AK, because like AK is way better for 20-meter contact than sniper rifle.
You also mentioned your sniper rifle multiple times. How did you get it, and what kind of rifle is this?
Oh, it was actually I just post on Instagram that some post for people, and ask those who not on the battlefield to fundraise, to help me with this fundraising, and so I buy a sniper rifle in Ibis shop, like our hunting shop. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically a hunting rifle.
Yes, but
Okay.
it's like perfect till 1,000 meters, so it's pretty good.
So you had this idea to be a sniper from the very beginning of the war, and you just fundraised a rifle for yourself.
Yes, because at the beginning we was almost without any weapon, uh, because also and the government and I believe the foreigners, they bit afraid of Azov name and they don't want to give us real weapon. So we have, for example, 100 of guys, but we have 100 AKs and few machine gun, and that's all. And I just said, give us at least some stupid SVD sniper rifle, and it was some kind of forbidden. So I tried to act without any permission and just collect the money for sniper rifle. Actually, was the reason, one of the reason why I asked the ZSU, like regular forces, for this NLAW, because like it was forbidden from a Western partner to give Azov javelins and NLAWs, and I don't know how we survived there. And what was the purpose of why they so afraid of us? I understand, because of Russian propaganda was so effective and so successful, unfortunately.
Yes, it sends us back to the side of Russian military that are usually underestimated. Even now, the false Russian narrative about Azov dominates the perception of many people.
You just could give them my example. I was in Azov in 2015. I was a break dancer. Like it's absolutely impossible to be like white power guy and dance in black dance, like hanging out with the Asian, with the black, with like people from all over the world. While doing real estate, I also have like clients from all over the world, and there was different nationality, and like it's so strange for me to hear about Nazi Azov still so stupidity, but yet it proves how professionally Russian propaganda works.
What was the maximum and average distances at which you engaged targets?
It's always mixed, because that's the point why I use AK and sniper rifle to cover like contact from 10-15 meters to 1,000 meters, to be like an ultimate soldier, like to. But from sniper rifle, the maximum was 920 meters against Wagner's. Yes.
Have you noticed any psychological effect that snipers have on enemy troops on the battlefield?
It's like different soldier, different snipers will have different answers, but I only have the opposite effect of my working, because for example, while shooting Wagner's, I was so like I was like machine gunner actually in a few fights, because I was calculate, okay, for 1 day mission I need maybe 20 bullets. It's gonna be like more than enough for sniper, but I take I'll take 35 just in case. And when I just shoot all these 35 like bullets from not from for 3 or 4 hours, and some of them was just fallen, and the other just look at them and continue going, like with no emotion, with no affection, without anything. There was some twisted shooting range when like nothing happened, like they just look at their fallen bodies and keep on going. I don't know, after that I even couldn't sleep, because I still can't understand how people not valuing their life so hard, like they doesn't care.
So, what do you consider the greatest threat to a sniper on the battlefield? Like, it's artillery, drones, other snipers, something else?
Yeah, actually, we must clarify this question because right nowadays, like right now and 1 year ago, it was way different being a sniper. Because right now, so many FPV drones, for example, my fellows who still on the battlefield, they said it's almost like time for snipers is just gone. Maybe in some close urban battles it could possible, but right now it's like it's impossible to be a sniper, because if at least somebody notice from where like where approximately you are, there will be like infinity number of FPV drones who definitely find you and hit you. So right now it's no time for snipers. So if you ask me right now, and my answer will be FPV drones. From my time, like more than a year ago, I always hate tanks the most. Yeah, they so precisely. They like the good tank driver and the tank shooter. It's like snipers with huge caliber. It's so precisely, and they shooting so fast with reloading so fast, and it's the most scary for me, the tanks.
It's interesting that you mentioned that time for snipers is over due to FPV drones, and many people say the same about the tanks, actually. So it looks like that tanks and snipers will never meet again. I also wanted to ask, what tactics can infantry use against FPV drones? I was injured before the moment drones became so abundant, but maybe you can share opinion of those who are still fighting and whom you still know.
Yes, like new fellows, because guys like me, they not on the battlefield, like those guys who fight so long, they not in infantry, at least, because you see infantry career, mine was pretty long, like more than a year and a half, but for many of them it's like it's over pretty quickly. So they become or either like drone operator, or in instructors, or in artillery, or like different places. But those guys who fight right now, they most of the time they use some nets or shotgun, right? Дробовики.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
shotgun is pretty effective, and even they some of our units, at least, they have electronic warfare systems, but not all of the unit, of course, but some of them even wear such things, because it's pretty tough even to come to your position right now. You should reach, like, you should run 4 or 5 or 6 kilometers to your trenches, because cars and vehicles, they can't approach more close to the trenches.
Did you have any experience of being a sniper in urban environment, and how it is different from fighting in fields and other rural areas?
Yeah, most of the time, like maybe 95%, I was in fields, and in urban, at least, it's closer contact, and so you it's easier for you, and harder easier, because you must not calculate the weather, the winter, the other stuff, because of closer shooting. But in the field, for example, our Donbass and Zaporizhia field, they have so many direction of the wind, so it's pretty hard to shoot so far, at least like 700, 800, 900. like 1 kilometer. You must be pretty skilled, and you should have time to calculate and maybe the opportunity to shoot not once but few times.
Have you ever encountered an enemy sniper?
Yeah, still I don't know how we survived there. It was near Bakhmut, and we was holding the defense, and the defense on 270 degrees. So from three sides of us was enemies. Only only one road behind us was like under our control, and it was like little forest, and 3 snipers from 3 different directions tried to kill me and my fellow sniper. It was one of the stupidest like duel, I believe, because they didn't shoot us. I don't know why or how, because they miss, and we still couldn't find them because of Bosch's. Yeah, so we just hear the sounds and we try to find them, but it was impossible. And such thing was like 3 or 4 hours, and then it just stopped.
Не шкодує снайперських куль. Вау.
Да, оттуда.
Угу.
3 часа.
Коротше. Вороги зі спини.
As the third year of this full-scale invasion draws to a close, do you notice any effects of the prolonged conflict on your morale or the morale of your fellow soldiers? And how do you deal with these challenges?
As I mentioned before, like being in infantry, if you are in infantry, you carry your career not so long. Of course, it's tough and physically and mentally to fight for so long. And while learning about psychology on war, and I try to compare our experience with American soldiers. So, like in such condition, the soldiers must not fight more than 2 or 3 months in such intensive battles. But we fight as long as our health or life like gives us this opportunity. And after that, after your body is so exhausted, I mean, if or when you're still alive, and your body is so exhausted, so it affects on your mind. It was the most hardest moment when I tried to understand how I think on the battlefield. The hardest situation is when your body totally exhausted, when you're starving, when you have no energy, when you like without eating, without sleeping, without nothing, and many negative thoughts appears. But yet, and of course, soldiers tired. Like it's my honest answer. But from the other side, we have no choice. We can't just give up. And those us who still fighting, then they can't just say, okay, I'm quit. I'm resigned from this job, and I'm gonna be IT manager or sales manager or something like this. We have no other choice, and that's why we keep on fighting.
I'm not a big fan of making predictions in the future, how things will unfold and so on. And I'm not going to ask you to predict something, because I think it's quite honestly just pointless.
Thank you.
However, I'm just curious about your opinion of potential dangers of freezing the conflict.
I was we already was in this situation in 2015 when it was like Minsk agreement. And I was on battlefield when they approved our ally pushed us to sign this agreement. So it was look like this: Russian keep on shooting at us, killing and injured our soldiers, and even if we shoot at least once, we have we shoot back. We have a lot of problems from higher commander. We have many problems of OCSE, who used to drive near our position and watch carefully that we never shoot back to Russians. And it was one of the reasons why Azov wasn't like, we was on the battlefield in 2014 and 2015, and then general staff take us from the front line, because we was volunteer soldiers, and when Russians shoot us, we shoot back. We wasn't listen to anybody. So we was changed to the regular army who used to obey the orders. But this is the problem. People keep on dying in from 2015 till 2022. Ukrainian soldiers died on the battlefield, and it was pretty like little frozen conflict compared to full-scale invasion. Because right now, I could we say no prediction, but sorry, one prediction will be here. I could give you 100% chance that if this war will be frozen, Russia could definitely continue shelling the cities with no punishment. But even if Ukrainian shoot back, there will be like a lot of arguments from the West that how dare you, please don't escalate. We finally find this peace, but there will be nothing against Russia. There will be always against Ukraine. So I really don't want this war to be frozen in such condition, because it will continue. Nobody push Russia, just stop. Why should they stop right now? I see no reason for them. That's all.
I also wanted to let you say something directly to our audience. Of course, it's most likely just common people from a variety of countries, predominantly Western ones, but I'm sure you have something to say.
Okay, first of all, sorry, but I disagree, and I'm sure that any people affect on any on any events on the earth. It depends on percentage, yes, sure, but any thoughts, any voices is important. So first of all, thank you, War Archive, for creating such content, and of course the viewers of your channel and other people who just watch your videos, because even though we said that people exhausted, people tired, it's almost 3 years of full-scale invasion and the war against Russia since 2014, you still watch such videos, and it proves that you're still interested in what's going on in Ukraine. You have your own problems in your own lives and countries, and yet you find sometimes you invest your times just to know more about what's going on in the world, and especially in Ukraine. And this is very important. It motivates me and other Ukrainians to keep on fighting, because we understand we're not alone in this big war. So I just wanna say thank you very much. Thank you for that. All of you have opportunity to push your government to help Ukraine more and to donate to Ukraine. If you don't have money, you can spread information. You can talk about Ukraine. It's like all the front line does matter. And I just thank you, and thank you very much for keep on supporting Ukraine. It means a lot for us.
After this great address, I believe we can wrap up our interview. First of all, I want to thank Roman for his valuable insights. I believe today we filled some gaps when it comes to my past documentaries, since it's always valuable to learn about battles from tactical perspective as well. The same is also true for Sniper Role on the battlefield. We got incredible insights. From Kiev to Bakhmut, we now can understand not just how the battles unfolded, but also what it was like to be on these battlefields. Let's also keep in mind that under these maps, with units and strategic events happening all the time, there are people like Roman who make impossible things possible. I also want to remind about Roman's fundraiser and thank United24 for specifically helping me and Roman to get in touch for today's interview. All the links to fundraiser, United24 channel, and Roman's Instagram page are in the description. I'm encouraging you to check them out if you really want to learn more. Thank you and see you next time.
See you. Take care.